Hello and welcome to Down to the Tyre. Today I'm joined by a very special guest. I'm joined by Fadia, who you may know as at Formula Fadia from TikTok if you follow her over there. She's got over 2,000 followers and her bio is that she likes fast cars and she likes talking about them. And her mature approach to speaking about motorsport results in her content being informative and educational while also being heaps of fun as well. Welcome, Fadia. How are you?
Hi! Oh my gosh, what an introduction! Thank you so much. I love the hype. I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I honestly love writing the intros. I find them so fun to write.
I'm not gonna lie, that's made my day. Speaking to you is making my day, but that's made my day. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited. For context, it's quite late in the evening while we're speaking. We've both been at work all day. We've been
Mhm.
waiting for this chat, and I just can't wait. So let's get straight into it. I want to go back a little bit to the start of your journey as a content creator. Where did it all begin? Where did your kind of TikTok journey begin? Where did your journey just being a motorsport fan begin?
My gosh, firstly, I still don't think of myself as an F1 content creator, even though I've been doing it for like over a year now. I started January 2023. And honestly, I started simply because I like to talk about motorsports, and all of my friends were getting really fed up of me essentially just sending them all the articles and being like, guys, I have an opinion. I have an opinion. I want to talk about this. And so I thought, you know what? I see everybody else doing these F1 TikToks. I might as well just join in with the fun. And on top of that, there weren't many brown people doing it at the time. So I thought I would like to be representation and just get on and yeah, thought I'd give it a try. And in terms of becoming an F1 fan, I am a DTS fan. I joined in 2021. A lot of people seem to think that I have been watching Formula One for a lot longer than I have. But yeah, 2021, pandemic, DTS, Daniel Joseph Ricciardo. That's all you need to say. Obviously, I was aware of it a lot longer. You can't live in England and not be aware what Formula One is. But yeah, that's the year that I fully sold my soul to Formula One.
That's kind of similar to me because I've always been aware of it. I'd say for me, it was perhaps 2020 lockdown year where I
Yeah.
just went headfirst straight into it and got obsessed.
Yeah. Yeah, so I watched DTS in 2020, but like 2021 was my first proper season. Yeah. Kind of wish I'd watched the 2020 season just so that I had something to do that year, but it is what
Yeah,
it is.
absolutely. Yeah, so you said that you're very opinionated about motorsport and you're clearly very, very passionate about the sport itself, I'd say. I think a lot of people's content focuses quite a bit on the drivers specifically, but I feel like your content is very much driven by the sport itself. And I think we said the other week that for you, any 20 people could be racing in this sport and you would still absolutely love it and watch it no matter what. What do you think in terms of obviously skills that you have that make you a good content creator? What do you think they are?
I don't know. That's a difficult question. Yeah, for me, I think it's having that passion for the sport itself is a very big thing because it gives me a sense of neutrality. Yes, I have my favorites and people that I prefer over others, but the ability to take a step back and think critically about what's going on in a bigger picture, I think is something that not everybody does because people obviously have their biases. I have my favorite drivers and I have my favorite teams, but if they were to leave, that wouldn't change my opinions in terms of, how I think the FIA is doing or what I think is going to happen with the sprint weekend formats or whatever it might be. So I think that that's kind of what I think makes me unique in my mind. And I bring my own perspective on it. I also am slightly older than a lot of the newer fans are, so I think I bring a level of maturity to how I think. But at the same time, I am a bit of an idiot behind the scenes, but nobody needs to know that.
I love it. And I think another thing that makes your content and just your TikTok channel, is it called a channel account? I guess,
No idea.
really unique is I feel like it really shines through that you've made some brilliant friendships through creating your content and through just being on that app. Did they all come about from TikTok and putting yourself out there on that app?
Yeah, so for me, like the biggest thing about me is I have a little motto that I put for myself, and that's friendship, fun, and Formula One. And you'll notice friendship is the very first thing I put there. So actually, my first F1 friends I met through Discord back in 2021 and WhatsApp groups. And then gradually this year, I completely, over the last 12 months, grew my social circle like massively. And most of my friends do happen to be F1 content creators now. But that's simply because that's where I spend a lot of my time. And that's where I find a lot of people with similar mindsets to me. But the idea for me is to just have fun experiences through Formula One and just make new friends. And that's just kind of what it's all about for me.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, I think you can just tell from your account and from the way you speak in your videos just how friendly you are. And I think you come across quite approachable in your videos as well. Like I feel like you're the type of person who no one would ever be afraid to comment on one of your videos or reach out to you or something, which I think is absolutely lovely, especially as we've said, it is quite a female dominated fan base on TikTok specifically. I
Yeah.
think a lot of the F1 fans on TikTok are female. So I think it's lovely that you have that welcoming space like that.
Oh, no, thank you for that. Like, genuinely, that means a lot because I don't ever want to be seen as someone that's not approachable. Like, for me, the idea is there's no such thing as a dumb question, and just please talk to me because I just want to talk to somebody. So, like, that's how we started talking. We just got into each other's DMs and started chatting away. And now I feel like I could talk to you whenever about anything.
Exactly. And I bet people listening won't even believe this is the first time we've ever been on a video call or an audio call together. I think like you can just tell that we've just made friends through that app. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. And something we have both spoken about before is how on TikTok as a content creator, it can be quite difficult to kind of find your place within that world. And you can easily kind of see other people's content and the angle that they're coming at it and kind of feel pressured to kind of follow trends or copy what they're doing and things like that, just purely because someone else is doing it. How do you feel like you maintain true to yourself through your content, and how do you kind of avoid those pressures of, oh, so and so is talking about this, that means I should too, even though it doesn't really fit what I feel comfortable talking about, for example?
Yeah. Oh gosh. So for me, I actually take regular breaks. I'll take like every few months, I'll take a week off if I feel myself I'm losing myself to the algorithm or to the, oh, everyone else is posting this trend, I need to post it too, or everyone's talking about the drivers or whatever it might be. And I'm feeling that self like, oh, I don't know how my voice fits in anymore. I literally will just take myself off the app for a few days and just give myself a reset and go, do I still want to keep doing this? Like, does it still fit to who I am? And if I ever get to the point that it doesn't feel natural, I'm just going to stop. In fact, literally today came back off a 4 or 5 day break because I was like, I need to just reset. But also, I do just think that I need to think about the reasons why I'm doing this. And for me, it genuinely was number one, to find friends, and I feel like I'm doing that. Number two, to post the content that I want to post and talk about the topics I want to post. Like, and there's a piece of advice that Ariana Bravo gave a group of us, and she was saying how it's to not necessarily chase the news story, but as a journalist, you're probably going to be very aware of this advice. But think about the news and what your point of view is. What value are you going to add to it? So I'm never going to be reactive and just be like, oh, Lewis Hamilton signed for Ferrari. For me, it's going to be okay, but the implications of that, what does that mean? And then that's what I'm going to want to post out there, because just being another person echo chambering isn't necessarily what I want to do. So that's kind of the piece of advice that sticks in my head every so often.
That's kind of why I lean more towards doing feeder series content myself rather than doing Formula One content, because I feel like there are so many great F1 content creators out there that I feel like I probably don't really have anything to add that millions of other people aren't already adding. So I guess it's kind of like picking the topics that you feel like you can bring a unique perspective to and say something that perhaps other people might not have thought about.
Yeah, I've got to admit, through your stuff, I've learned so much about the feeder series. So please continue doing it because it's how I'm learning. And my thing is about learning and just wanting to grow because I love motorsports. So the more you post, the more I learn. So
That's
keep going.
amazing. I love that. Speaking of the feeder series, what is kind of your journey with watching them? Which ones have you watched? Which ones, if there's any that you're planning on getting into, kind of what point are you at with the feeder series? Because I know we mentioned you've watched a bit of F2 before, if I'm right.
Yes. So I love the F2. I think it's actually it's better than F1. I'm gonna say the racing is so much better than F1. So I think I started watching that same season I started watching F1, I started watching F2, but not so religiously.
Mhm.
And then F3 is definitely like when you're having breakfast in the morning, kind of watching a sprint race or feature race is the vibe. So I'm not invested in it, but I will watch it if I'm awake. And then sort of I know I'm trying to get into a bit of F4, so like the Saudi Arabia series that was just on the UAE stuff, trying to watch that, but again, that's just when I'm missing motorsports and I want to watch it, because the best thing about these feeder series is that you don't need to know like the characters or the drivers. You're just literally there for the sport, and that's the bit that interests me the most personally, just watching the sport, and it's just so much better racing. And I do want to get into the F1 Academy this year. Just hope that the racing is as good as all the hype around it, because we need to be supporting these women.
Absolutely. And now we can actually watch it, finally.
Yeah, that was last year was a bit of a travesty, but hopefully it'll be worth the hype and worth the wait.
I don't know if you've seen some of the recent sponsor announcements for F1 Academy, like Charlotte Tilbury stepping in and stuff. What are kind of your thoughts on F1 Academy going into this series? Obviously, now we can watch it. There's some big names, sponsors stepping in. Every F1 team has a driver representing them in the series. Do you think it is going to go upwards this year
I,
rather than kind of tail off like W Series did?
I genuinely think they're putting the support into it this time around. I think they've learned their lessons from where W Series went wrong, because the reason W Series failed was financial backing. And now with 2/3 of the drivers sponsored by a team and big sponsors coming in for the remainder of the drivers, I think there's no excuse for it to fail. And I think also reputationally, I don't think F1 can afford for F1 Academy to fail, because if they've let two series fail, even though W Series is independent, if they've let two fail, that's going to look really bad on them in this day and age. So I think that they'll make it a success, even if, and I'm going to say, even if the race isn't as great as we expect it to be initially, they're going to do everything they can to force that into a success. I think they need to, my perspective at least.
I definitely agree. And it's obviously going to be a good couple of years until any of the drivers from F1 Academy do make it to F1, because obviously it is an F4 level series. But F2, there are some drivers who obviously could make the step up to F1 in 2025, with there being so many contracts ending at the end of 2024. Are there any F2 drivers who you know of, who you've kind of got an eye on, who you think could step up to F1 in 2025?
I mean, there's two that come to mind, right? One is Ollie Behrman, because if he doesn't end up in Haas, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised, because that kid, and I still call him a kid, because even though he's 18, but yeah, that kid's got talent, and we know that he's got. But if we're talking about talent, talking about the prodigy, the one that everybody is hyping up, Kimi Antonelli. I don't know whether he'll go into 25. I kind of want him to have an extra year in F2, personally. But I think that if forced, he'll step in. What do you think?
I've seen a lot of people saying that he'll spend 1 year in F2 and then go to Williams, but I think I'd rather see him spend longer in F2 than go to Williams. Because I think, firstly, Williams have their own driver academy, and if they take a
Yeah.
Mercedes junior, that looks quite bad on the Williams academy. It's basically saying this academy isn't going to get you to F1, which isn't what you want your academy to be saying.
Agreed. Agreed. That's a really good point. Like, Logan Sargent was Williams Academy, wasn't he? And if they do start taking the Mercedes, they do look like a tier two team. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I made a video about that on TikTok, and loads of people were like, "Oh, I hadn't thought of that." So
Yeah.
it's an interesting one. And I feel like as well, if he steps up to Mercedes in 2025, that's obviously a huge leap. That's massive to go from F2, especially bearing in mind that he hasn't even done F3, to
Yeah.
then step to Mercedes.
Agreed. I'd love for him to do maybe like F2 this year, and then next year F2/reserve driver duties for Mercedes, and then go into Mercedes directly. That's kind of like where my brain's going, but time will tell.
Yeah, I think that's a good alternative if he does only do 1 year in F2. I had an interesting theory from a guy called Ollie who watches me on TikTok. Shout out Ollie. And he said that he feels like with Andrea Kimi Antonelli, he could need like longer in F2 or just longer to develop. And Fernando Alonso could be a good driver to go to Mercedes just for a year or two before he retires. And then Kimi Antonelli can come in after, because you've got drivers like Albon. Albon's going to want much longer at Mercedes than a couple of years.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. So I've not published my predictions yet because I've only literally wrote them on the train home today. But number one is Alonso to Mercedes because it just makes sense. Just makes sense. I kind of want Albon to stay at Williams or to go, or maybe go to Aston Martin is kind of where my guess is going. But yeah, I am. I really want Alonso to Mercedes just because I think it would give him a shot at a good car, let him have win 33 and prove to everybody that he's got that talent still.
I think it would work well for both Alonso and Andrea Kimi
Mercedes.
Antonelli. Like, it kind of fits what they all want. Everyone's happy, apart from Albon, maybe. But
Yeah. I mean, with Albon, especially with the whole rumors of him potentially going to Red Bull, potentially going to Mercedes, it's an interesting time for him. But yeah, sorry, Alex Albon, I do kind of want it to work out the other way.
me too. Me too. And since we've had all of the car livery launches, now I've got to ask your opinions on them all. What are your thoughts?
So for all of the mocking that we all did of Stake F1, of the names and the Visa Cash App RB team, whatever it's called, they are my favorite two liveries on the grid this year. They are beautiful, they are different, they are stunning. I love the colors. I love the Toro Rosso throwback. So yeah, as much as I want to laugh at their names, they got it right with the marketing and with the liveries. What about yourself? What did you like?
I liked both of the ones you've mentioned, and I also really liked the Mercedes.
Ooh, I'm gonna disagree with you on this one. I don't like the Mercedes one bit. It just either go silver or either go black were my thoughts. I just can't understand the two together, but it is fitting for Lewis Hamilton's last year to have both of his cars in one.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Just like make a decision. Maybe it's because I'm quite an indecisive person. I like the fact that they have been indecisive too. But yeah, what's your opinion on, obviously there's been quite a lot of carbon on a lot of the liveries. What are your thoughts on that?
To be honest, I can still distinguish between the cars, so I don't mind. I think a lot of people are like, oh, there's not enough paint, but for me, if you can tell the difference still, it's fine. It's when it gets to the point that you can't identify the difference between the cars that it's like maybe the FIA or F1 needs to step in and do something or say something here. But yeah, I quite like it, and I'm a fan of black. So, what about yourself?
I think it works on some and it doesn't work on others. I think the Alpine, it looks like a carbon car with a few pink stickers on it,
I'm not
right?
gonna lie, I love the pink livery of Alpine. It's because I love the fact that it just had those details of the hot pink. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people that were expecting a pink car, I can understand why there was disappointment.
Yeah. I think they teased the camo too much.
Too much. I've got to ask a question.
Yep.
There's always one team that you kind of forget exists. So when you're listing the teams on the grid or the drivers on the grid, there's always one or two that you're going to forget.
Great.
Who is your team?
Oh, I think, well, me and my brother were doing like we were doing our top 20, like who we think is going to finish in the drivers' championship. And I forgot Daniel Ricciardo because he's with, I know, because he's with Visa, Cash App, whatever now. So I think they're a team I forget because I forgot Daniel Ricciardo. That's how forgettable the team is I forgot Daniel Ricciardo existed.
My heart breaks. Man, they're coming into F1.
No. Who's your team that you always forget?
I'm not gonna lie, it's Alpine.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Alpine, or sometimes, and this is a really weird one to forget, given how big they are. But I was literally listing out the names yesterday. I forgot Ferrari. I
What?
don't know how. Ferrari is F1, F1 is Ferrari, but apparently not to Fadia. Yeah.
I know you've said you don't have like particular biases towards drivers or teams, but are there any that if they are doing well, you're happy they're doing well?
Oh, I'm not gonna hide it. I love McLaren. Like McLaren's my core. But at the same time, if Red Bull or Mercedes or Ferrari's doing better, I'm gonna be like, go to the others. Like, woohoo! But yeah, I want Lando and Oscar to get their first wins this year because I think that would be really cool.
I agree. I want them both to get wins and I want Albon to get a podium. They're my bold predictions.
That's it. I want out because like Albon to get a win in a Williams is impossible, but a podium, like a Monza podium, like come on, Albon, you could do it. You could do it.
Do you have any other bold predictions for the year?
Well, I've got Haas both drivers leave. I don't know that's bold. I think that's gonna happen. Um, I got something about maybe Lance Stroll either does amazing or does awful. He's gonna have a sink or swim year, I think, for Lance Stroll. But in terms of podiums, the only other one that I think is boldish, Yuki Tsunoda gets his first podium.
I like it. I like it a lot.
No, no,
My
what's
bold
your
prediction was that Red Bull are going to swap Perez and Ricardo in the summer break.
But I literally said this today. I don't know if you've seen that I said it. I there was Instagram or somewhere. I was like,
I haven't seen it yet.
please, all I want this year is to see Daniel Ricciardo in a Red Bull. I don't care if that makes me sound like a DTS fan. It's all I want.
I don't think anyone blames you for wanting that. Perez is not doing the job. He is not serving.
However, Perez does seem to save himself every time he's in jeopardy. You think he's gonna go like last year, all that talk, and then right at the end when it really mattered, he came out of nowhere and was like, "I'm great again. Remember, I can drive a car." So if this year he knows he's at risk, does he come out and go, "Oh look, guys, remember, I do know how to drive." I think their name is just RB, by the way, because if you go on the F1 website, it just says RB. So I mean, that's what I'm going at, and everyone thinks I'm talking about Red Bull every single time. I'm like, I don't care. I'm going with
So
RB.
confusing.
But I don't know if this is a branding thing because if they really have taken on a lot of the old RB19 and that car is really good, surely the sponsors behind Visa Cash App RB are gonna want Daniel Ricciardo to stay there because he is media man, PR king. So he could stay there if the car's good enough and the money's worth it. That's my hot take. I don't want it to happen because I want him in Red Bull so bad. Um, but I think he could. I think he might end up staying there, and then Liam Lawson could one day find himself as the Red Bull second driver.
Hope so. I really want Lawson to get an F1 drive.
Uh, yeah, that's something that I feel a lot of people forgot about. He deserves an F1 seat this year. So, as in 2025 coming, sorry. So, I think that if he doesn't end up in one, something has gone horribly wrong with the system. He proved his worth. In fact, I personally think that he could have potentially had that drive this year, but that's controversial.
I was rooting for him to get a drive this year. I'll be honest.
I'm gonna say I would rather Yuki Tsunoda go and bring Liam Lawson in.
I honestly agree. I
Okay.
feel mean. I
I know
feel
I feel
mean to
so
you.
mean.
But I want Yuki to get an opportunity. Ideally, I'd want Yuki to get an opportunity somewhere else. Maybe Aston Martin with the
I was gonna.
Honda thing.
That's literally what my brain's gone. Fernando Alonso leaves, either Albon in or Yuki Tsunoda takes that seat a little bit earlier than planned.
Or both. Get rid of Stroll.
Well, Papa Stroll has gotten rid of a lot of the ownership of the Aston Martin F1 team, so his say is limited, which is why I said sink or swim year for Lance Stroll.
As well. Stroll could go to WEC because Aston Martin have WEC for 2025. Like they're getting involved in WEC.
Yes, and I think honestly that could be a really good move for him. Like none of this stigma of being there just because your dad's bought a seat. Because I do think Lance Stroll does have talent.
Oh
I
yeah.
just think it's not at the level that it needs to be now. I think he deserved the seat in F1 initially, but I don't think he deserves the seat at this level anymore. So if he doesn't come out fighting, I think he should go to F1 and free up that seat for Alex Albon and Yuki Tsunoda. How beautiful would that be as a partnership?
It's a great lineup. It's a great lineup. And I do think that Stroll is talented enough to have a career in racing, 100%.
Agreed. What do you think of Mick Schumacher?
I was making a TikTok the other day about who I think is going to take the Mercedes seat, and I had to edit out when I called him a bit mid because I knew people would cancel me.
But you weren't telling anything wrong there. You weren't
No,
lying.
I'm happy to say it on here because people won't cancel me on here as much as they would on TikTok. But I
Yeah.
don't think he's a bad driver. I don't think he's an F1 level driver. I think he could, again, a bit like Stroll, I think he deserves to
Yeah.
have a professional career in racing. I just don't think he is F1.
Great. I think he deserved his seat in the first place because he earned it F2 champion, showed the wins, had the potential. Yes, going to Haas possibly wasn't the best career move when Alfa Romeo was there, but like yeah, he had his opportunity, he blew it, or whatever happened with Haas, and he didn't get the opportunity to continue further. But yeah, I don't know that he deserves to. I don't. He definitely doesn't have Mercedes talent. Let's put it that way. I don't think he could prove us all wrong one day, but yeah,
Yeah,
I think WEC is going to be a really good move for him personally.
I completely agree. I just honestly think that a lot of these drivers have spent their whole lives leading up to F1 and trying to get into F1, but I think they get to a point where they remember F1 isn't the be all and end all of motorsport. You can still have a successful motorsport career and it not be in F1, and that's completely fine.
Yeah, I mean IndyCar is thriving at the moment and growing, and like look at Marcus Armstrong, who had a really poor F2 career towards the end of it, and obviously that tailed up, and then was Rookie of the Year in IndyCar. Like WEC, I'm not gonna lie, WEC is something that's quite new to me. I'm gonna try and catch a few races this year, but I don't know if I have the mental capacity to take on IndyCar or Fadia series, Formula E, and WEC and IMSA. But yeah, like there's so much more to motorsports than just F1. And I think that drivers need to realize that, but also us as fans need to realize like the whole pinnacle of motorsports thing, I personally think is overrated.
That is literally the whole purpose of this podcast summarized nicely. Just F1 is not the pinnacle of motorsport. It's great, but it's not the be all and end all. There's so much more going on that should be appreciated more than it is.
Honestly, but also not just from the racing perspective, not just from the driver perspective, but also as a fan, think of the accessibility. Like, how much cheaper is it to go to any other racing series? Like, I was looking at potentially doing FE in Monaco this year versus F1 Monaco this year. What, 3 weeks difference or 2 weeks difference? And you're on the same circuit. Yes, the cars are different, the drivers are different, but the price tag is so different as well. Like, and I've got people talking about MotoGP, like their tickets at Silverstone. The price differential is crazy. People need to realize that there is more to it. If you like the sport for the sport and not for the drivers, and there's nothing wrong with liking it for the drivers and the teams, like that is completely valid. But if you're liking sport for the sports itself, there is so much more to the whole universe. Oh, geez, that was like a sales pitch.
Amen. That's the Down to the Tyre motto right there. That is what Down to the Tyre is about. So I think it makes sense that we wrap it up there. I feel like
Yeah.
that's the point. Thank you so much for your time. Before we go, where can listeners find you if they want to go and check you out?
At Formula Fadia, I'm primarily on TikTok. Might end up on Instagram one day. We'll see. But there and also in my DMs, chat to me, people.
Do chat to us. She's so friendly, I promise. I'm not being paid to say that.
But yeah, that £10 you'll get that later.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. I'll send you my details. Oh, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And thank you to Fadia for being such a brilliant guest. Thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you so much. Time flew fast. I had such a
It
good time.
didn't it?
Yeah,
We're on less than 1 minute on the Zoom, which always makes me panic a little bit. So thank
we
you
made
to
it.
everyone for listening. Make sure you follow me at Down to the Tyre on everything and follow Fadia as well. And I'll see you next week for another episode. Bye.